It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble, 30 minutes of time-wasting fun today. And, I'm going to tell you why I love this show, okay? You have to remember that I hosted a syndicated radio show for 15 years, and we had, dozens of stations that we programmed for, and you've got, advertising commitments, you've got station requirements to meet. So it was very structured. It was I could say whatever I wanted, but I couldn't just go and say, okay, today I'm going to do this on the show. I could to a point, but if we had celebrity guests and we had something to promote, and then we had, just very time-sensitive things, I couldn't just come in and go, all right, what am I talking about today? Maybe in the very early days before it was a very structured show. So the great thing about the podcast is I can say to our team, and we've been together as a group for 20 years now, I can come in, we might not even be planned, it's not even a brainstorm session, it's not even a meeting, it's not a creative, discussion at all. I might just be out for lunch with somebody, and we just have a conversation, and I go, that's a show. That's a topic. Let's do that. And so that's what happened today. And what's even funnier is I'm going to tell you what the topic is today. And you've probably already read it if you read the description of the show. We're talking about death. Yeah. And why is that funny? Because it's obviously something that, we can't escape. It's inevitable. And, it kind of sounds morbid to say, but, I could die today. You could die today, right? On your way home from, if you're going out somewhere, whatever, you get hit by a car, right? It's just the reality. I'm not being, I'm not making a joke. I'm not being sarcastic, but your house could get hit by lightning or, something. So, but we don't go through the day thinking about that, right? I mean, maybe some people do. I don't, but as you get older, then you start to have these thoughts. And so when there's a death in your life around you, right? A relative or, friend or coworker, a neighbor or something like that, then it puts it into your head, right? Then you're thinking about your own mortality and you're planning, right? Do I have my affairs in order? Do I have, who's going to get custody of my dog? Or, you start to think about some of those things. And then it fades, actually, right? It doesn't kind of linger. You think about it maybe for a little while, a day or two or something, and then it's a forgotten about thing. So the reason we're talking about death today is so we've got 3 points to the story, and I hope that we're going to do it in 30 minutes. I'm a talker, so I like to drag things out. Case in point, I should have already thrown to a commercial and then got into the first segment already, but it's just, Okay. My family's a little bit odd. A couple years ago, we had a few family members on my dad's side of the family that were ill. And some of them have diseases like diabetes, and a lot of them are overweight. And so there's just health issues across the board on my dad's side of the family. And so we had the biggest miscommunication ever. And I laugh now and say, only my family would have a shit show like that happen. So I'm going to tell you that story. Second, we've had a round of death in my world. And so I'm going to talk about how just when you think, okay, preparing, we got one funeral, okay, great, major change of plans. And then the third point of conversation is as an entertainment host, so I just said I've been on the radio for many, many years. As a radio host, entertainment correspondent, entertainment host, I am still called upon by the broadcast stations that ran our shows to be there, major story breaks, Justin Bieber's arrested or Kim Kardashian's robbed or a celebrity dies, they come to JB. And I kind of enjoy that, right? So I retired from radio over 5 years ago now, but I'm doing the Barbara Walters thing where it's kind of like, I'm not doing it every day, but it's kind of like, I'll appear here and there. So I like that. I don't want to do the, 5 days a week or whatever. I'll just jump on when you need me. And so that's what I do. So people have those moments in their life where it's like, you remember where you were when, right? September 11th, January 6th, what other big events, the Queen's death, or just, whoever it was. And so as an entertainment reporter, for me, that's where I don't necessarily remember the world events. I remember September 11th because I remember watching it at home. I lived with my parents at the time. January 6th, I was in our studio taping something, and so we have the TVs on, and so I remember watching it there. But for me, it's those celebrity deaths are the ones that I remember because I'm out somewhere, I'm doing something, or maybe we're in the middle of a show and suddenly, something happens. So there are a few celeb deaths that stick out just because of what I was doing at the time. So those are the 3 points I'm going to hit today on the show, right? So the major miscommunication, the round of death, and where was I when? It's on the Scribble starting right after this.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
JB here on The Scribble. Welcome to the Death Show. That's what I'm calling it today. I don't know. It's one thing to sort of be scared about it, but like I said, it's all going to happen to us, at some point, hopefully later than sooner. But I mean, you just never know. And I don't know. Anyway. Okay. So the major miscommunication that my family had a couple of years ago, we still laugh about. Actually, I got together with two of my cousins the other day, and we were taking a walk down memory lane. And the reason why we were was because we just had a recent death in the family, which I'll talk about in the next segment. But a couple of years ago, we had, as I mentioned, a couple of relatives that were sick. One was, he was having heart troubles, and he was very, very overweight. Actually, he was about 500 pounds, if I'm not mistaken, is what I was told. I didn't weigh him myself, but you can look and kind of figure. I mean, once somebody passes, the 250, 300, are they 350, 400, 450? I don't know what that looks like. I just know he was big. So he didn't take care of his body. He was very unhealthy. Then we have an uncle who had diabetes, and he lost the lower part of his leg to diabetes. Or was it a foot? I can't remember. Apparently he was sending around pictures to family members. I wasn't on that group message or whatever, and I'm very grateful. I've heard about this infamous picture that he was sending around. I have not seen it. And one of my cousins that I was out with, she said she has still not looked at it. It's an unread message in her box still. Because I think it came through Facebook too. So it wasn't even a text message. It wasn't even like a personal, on your own device to device. It was you're using Meta to send limb photos. But again, that's my family. Just my dad's side of the family is the one that's really kind of fucked up. But so it was a weekend. I don't know if it was Saturday or Sunday, but it was a weekend kind of morning. And so my husband, we have our routine where my husband will do, if we were in Canada at the time, because the pandemic was on. So he has a gym in our basement, full gym. We're not just talking about like, oh, there's a treadmill in the corner of the room. No, he's got a fucking full on, like, you think that you're in almost like a hotel gym. Because he's a fitness and model and bodybuilder. And so I would be then doing the bath around the same time. And then we reconvene after I soak in the tub for 2 hours. He works out. We would then walk the dogs, or we'll do breakfast or brunch or lunch or whatever it is. So I had just got out of the bathtub. He was just showering because we were going to go out. And all of a sudden, my cousin calls me. And she says, Uncle so-and-so, Mr. Halfleg, died. And I said, oh my God. I mean, that's... So it's one of those things where the person's sick. I didn't think that he was on his deathbed, but that's kind of crazy. So, you're sort of half prepared for it when you know that they're, I don't want to say knocking on death's door, but I mean, And so I was like, oh, okay. Now, you have to realize that my dad's side of the family isn't really close with each other, so the actual feeling of sadness or grief would be next to none for him. So you're more likely going to feel sorry for like the people that he's leaving behind, right? So his wife, and by the way, his wife had a stroke just after he had issues, and they have 3 kids, and then there's grandkids. So that's where your grief goes. But when the person isn't taking care of themselves and they're letting their body go to shit, you're 500 pounds for my cousin's sake, like you're kind of like, well, I mean, so. I have a really photographic memory to the point where I remember that I was standing just outside the bathroom and I'm leaning up against the wall and I'm talking to my cousin because she was just out. She was at a garden center or something. I can't remember where, but she was out, doing some running around. So I was kind of like, oh, okay, well, like, thanks for letting me know. Let's, we'll chat later because I'm just about to, head out with husband. You're out, you're doing your running around. 20 minutes later, I get a text message from my mom saying that my cousin died, the 500-pounder. And I'm sitting here going, holy shit. So did we just have 2 different family deaths in an hour? Like, like on a Saturday morning or whatever the day was? Did we just lose 2 people in the morning? In the same day? Like, did this 2 naughty, and that's, so that uncle, it's not his kid that's 5, these are different families altogether. Like, so I'm sitting going, I'm about, now being the news person, I'm sitting here going, holy shit, this is ridiculous. This is like breaking news. So now we got 2 stories that are, happening at the same time. So my mom texted me that. I reply and said, and Uncle so-and-so? I don't even wait for her reply. I call my cousin now again, the one that I just hung up the phone with her, 10, 20 minutes ago. And so I'd said to her we would talk later, but here I am calling her again right away. And so she's kind of like, well, what? And I said, my mom just said, da-da-da-da-da died. I'm not giving names, okay? Da-da-da died. Cousin such and such. She has to pull over because she answered like on speakerphone in the car, like that comes through your system, through your speaker. So she pulls over and she's like, let me call my dad, because it was her dad, my other uncle. It was her dad that called and told her that Uncle so-and-so died. So now my mom replies while I'm waiting for my cousin to call me back. And so my mom says, no, it was cousin such and such. So my cousin now calls me back. This is our 3rd call today. She calls me back and she's just like, my dad doesn't know who it was, because her dad is hard of hearing. He did not have his hearing aids in. And at that time, he was just in early stages of dementia. He had not been diagnosed yet, but there were signs of it. Okay. So she's saying, I just called him. He said that, no, it was Uncle so-and-so. Are you sure, Dad? Like, she's kind of, is that, who called you? Who told you? Who was it? So then, it was so-and-so. So then she goes and calls that person. Let's go right to the source, right? Okay, you called my dad. What did you tell him? And sure shit, it was the cousin. It wasn't Uncle so-and-so. Now, here's what's weird. Is that she called the mother of the cousin. So basically, my cousin is thinking that she's calling our aunt to hear about another. So we're talking about 2 different uncles and an aunt. Okay, these are all different families. So my cousin, she heard from her dad, so my uncle. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to call Auntie so-and-so. Well, sure, shit, it was Auntie so-and-so's kid that died. Eek! Right? How awkward is that? Because we don't know that. And that's when it was like, no, it was my son. Like, it was your cousin. And now my cousin's on the spot going, oh, fucking shit. Right? So, oh my God, sorry. So then I get the call back. So she tells me, okay, false alarm, whatever. I said, are you sure though? Have we heard from Uncle so-and-so? Like, let's check on him though, because maybe, right? So for about an hour, well, it was an hour, I guess. Maybe it was an hour. We did not know who died in our family. And so then the awkwardness of calling and going, oh my God, so Uncle so-and-so died. No, it was my son. Eek, eek, eek. So I don't even want to ask you, after I tell a story like that, that's where I go and say, has that ever happened to you? Have you had something? I don't know. How likely is that to have happened to other families? But you've got the deaf uncle who's telling that another uncle died. And then you call another aunt to confirm, and she says, no, it was my son. Yep, that's my family. Only my family could pull off something like that. It was so awkward. And so I say now, however many years later, I guess it was maybe 5 years later or something, that, well, I guess we laughed about it at the time. I can't say we can laugh about it now because we've laughed about it ever since. But it's just, and this is the thing. I don't want you to think that I'm laughing at people in my family dying, but that's also the sense of humor of my dad's side of the family. So that deaf uncle I was saying, so when his wife, when my aunt died, my cousin's mom, and so that's a family there. I was asked, and I always get stuck at speaking at these funerals. So I would go toe to toe to her with sarcasm. Like she would, she was a feisty woman, and I loved going back and forth with her on things. And so my uncle had said to me after she died, there's only one person that can do this, meaning MC or like host the funeral. And it's got to be you, So I did. I got together with the family, and I knew my aunt for my entire life, for 40, or I guess at that time I would have been 30 some years old. And but you get stories from them, right? Because obviously they spent a lot more time with her and whatever. And so I come back to my house, and I'm a writer and a public speaker for over 20 years, so it's easy for me to kind of, once I get into a zone, I can't just go and say, okay, now I'm going to come home and I'm going to write out the eulogy and all these things. I gotta be in a moment, right? So her restaurant was A&W. My uncle and her would go for breakfast, like once a week at least, to have A&W. And so, she wasn't a drinker, but at weddings, like just different event, Christmas or something, right? She would have a bit of a nip. So at one of our cousin's weddings, we were at we're at the bar, we're ordering drinks, whatever, and we had, Canadians know sourpuss. I don't know how widespread it is, but it's a shot. It's and there's like blue, or there's red, or there's green. I think green was the apple one. So a couple of us cousins are at the bar, getting shots, and so my aunt comes behind, and so she's like, "What? It's like green stuff. What is that? Radioactive?" And so then she sees the bottle, and again, it's called Sour Puss. And so there's a picture of a cat on it. And so she looks like, sour pussy? What is that? But, only my aunt, right? At a wedding, just out of nowhere, just loudly. What is that? You're having sour pussy? Yeah. And so she had a couple of shots of it, and she really liked it. So I filed that away. And then being a Ukrainian and Polish family, we would have, kubasa, or as the non-Ukes or Poles would say, kubasa. Kubasa is how we say it. So I went and got like a pepperoni and cheese and kubasa platter. I ordered A&W delivery to my house, and then I went and bought a bottle of sourpuss. And so I thought, tonight's the night I'm going to write this for her. Like, now I'm in the zone. I've got this. And one of the very first things that I said, she was cremated, was I said, okay, so I'm going to go up. I'm going to welcome everybody. I'm going to say... And so I was, Uncle John asked me about doing this, and I said, oh, of course I would love to. And they said, just let loose, jokes, whatever. And I said, you want me to roast her? And they said, no, we already did that. And then I pointed to the urn. So that's how I opened the eulogy for this aunt. So that's the kind of family that we are. Okay. That was kind of a long story, but I got to kind of set that up. Maybe I should have said it at the beginning of the segment, so you don't think that I'm entirely morbid and a dick, but I am morbid and a dick. So when we come back, as I said, we had a round of deaths just recently, and I'll talk about that on the Scribble right after this.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
JB here on The Scribble. So unlike that situation that I was just describing where we thought we had 2 deaths within an hour of each other in our family, we did have something similar just recently. So I knew that my cousin's husband, now this is a different cousin altogether, I haven't even mentioned her. Her husband was battling cancer for about 2 or 3 years. It was aggressive, it was pancreatic, it just, he declined not quickly at the beginning. After he stopped treatment because it was just too much from whatever, obviously then, right? I'm not a doctor, but I'm just saying, that's obviously when you stop treating it, now it's going to explode or whatever. And so that ended up ultimately what happened. So, here I go now with it. So my cousin married a woman who's a nurse. And so she would be visiting him, and so her family lives over in the East Coast. And she had said a couple of weeks ago, I'm gone for 2 weeks to go visit my family, blah, blah, blah. And I hope he's going to. So when you have somebody who's a trained medical professional, that means something more than, somebody like my mom going and saying, oh, well, I think it's going to be any day now. What do you know? You're not a fucking doctor, right? So a nurse, I'm going to kind of go and say, okay, you know what? Maybe she's not seeing his files and his charts or whatever, but, she recognizes stuff like that. And she's 60 something. So, she's been in that profession for a very long time. And so I was kind of like, okay, so it is one of those any day now things if she thinks that it is. So 2 weeks actually had gone by, and now she's back home from visiting her family. And so I thought, okay, we haven't heard anything. Well, then on Monday morning, so this was last week, Monday morning, I get a text from that cousin with whom I had that weekend morning conversation. And I wake up and I look, and she had texted me first thing in the morning and said that my cousin's husband had died. So again, one of those situations where it's coming, and I wasn't super close with the guy, even though he was part of our family. They were married 30 some years. They dated even from high school. So he was around almost as long as I was. My cousin and him were in a relationship for 41 years, I believe it was. I'm 44. So, he's been around almost as long as I have. And I could count, on less than one hand, if that even makes sense. I could count on one hand the amount of times that I had a conversation with him. I think I probably maybe nodded or said hi to him at a family get-together, but having a conversation with this guy, never, ever in my life. He had a retirement party a few years ago, which I went to because, family, whatever. Free meal, cousin was paying. And even then it was awkward to just kind of say hi. I don't know what the hell you did for a living, big guy. Don't know. I don't know. Okay, it looks like you're wearing coveralls. So you did were you a mechanic? Were you I don't know. But, so I think it was probably even maybe awkward for him too, right? Because he's like, oh, it's nice the family came, but I'm just kind of like, I don't know what your job was. I don't know what you do. I don't know anything about you. So depressed, upset or sad, grieving about his death? No, not really. Because again, now, like I said, do I feel bad for my cousin who, she's only knows her adult life with this guy? Yeah, that's the sad part of the story, right? They didn't have kids or anything, so it's not like there's a big family, and but certainly my cousin now really has nobody. They no pets, no kids, right? So that's a big deal for her. Now, here's the thing. as I already said, the public speaker, right? The writer in the family, and it's always awkward because it sounds like I'm cocky when I say this, but I know that I'm going to get that call or that text, right? Like, it's kind of just when I hear that somebody's getting married, or when I hear that, or there's been a death, I just know it's like, oh, I'm going to be asked. I'm going to have to speak. I'm going to have to write because, one, that's a very sensitive time. So I wouldn't expect my cousin to get up there, like the widow, to get up there and talk, right? And nobody in our family is like a public speaker or writer, right? So if this is what you do, and this is... Now, that's where you have that awkward situation because the family's going to know, oh, all right, Jeremy, he really knew that guy? Like, I don't remember ever seeing them talk together. No, because we never did talk together. So that's where it's always kind of strange. So, and of course I say yeah to doing it just because what am I going to say, right? Well, I didn't really know the dude, and even though he was around for 40 years, maybe it was, he was the grown up. He's like 20 years older than me. He could have taken an opportunity when I was a kid to, talk to me, say something to me ever. So, it's awkward because then and even with that cousin, I don't have a very close relationship. So it is very strange that your first kind of grown up conversations with a family member that you've known your entire life is about the death of her husband. But that was legitimate, like the first kind of sit down. So it's awkward to, to go to her place and be like, I don't even know where the fuck she lives. And now do I bring a card for her in this moment? Do I offer to bring food over? Like, I don't know what you do for something. Like, I don't give two shits about you, right? And again, I'm not saying anything about, but I don't think that they give two shits about my life either. So this is not me being an asshole. This is me just giving you the reality of that family dynamic. So and then of course, my husband's like, well, do you want me to come? And so I'm like, that's also going to be really awkward because she just lost her man. And now I'm bringing my big, hot, muscular husband to kind of sit there. No, like, what are you going to do? You've even said less to him than I did. And I said nothing to him. So you're less than nothing to him. Sorry, husband, you were nothing to him and he was nothing to you. So, So it was kind of strange that you have this first kind of like heart-to-heart conversation with your cousin after, her husband, who's been around almost as long as you've been alive, has died. But here we are. So, she's telling me things, and then she just gives me the names of all of these, like his friends or his family members. How do you break the ice there? I randomly just add them on Facebook and message them. She gave me links to their Facebook pages. Hi, you don't know who I am. I'm Jeremy. I'm the cousin. I'm going to be doing this. Or to just to send a random text to these people. Yeah, you don't know me. I'm so-and-so's cousin. I'm supposed to get some stories from you. Like, it's very strange. Now, I like a challenge like that because, as I said, I'm a writer and a performer at that too, right? So the whole thing is, that's what's fun for me because I'm sitting here going, I don't know two shits. It's like the funeral director. When they go up, that they didn't know the person when they were alive, right? But they're going on what the families told them. I just slapped myself, by the way, in case you heard that loud. I'm abusing myself. So that's what it is. You're pretending like you knew them, gave two shits about them when you really, it's like the first time that I saw the dude in my life. And by the way, so that dead cousin, the husband, he had transformed just with dramatic weight loss and really, I would not have known him to pass him in the mall. So when you want to talk about, whoa, were you close? He could have been walking towards me. I would not have known that was him. So anyway, so I was kind of like, okay, great. So now they're not going to do the funeral for, I guess it was 2 weeks ago then that he died. It wasn't last week. It was 2 weeks ago. So they weren't doing the funeral for 2 weeks. So it was going to be, she's going to get things together, whatever. And then there was some kind of family function. I didn't go to it. It was either a baby, I guess it was a christening or a baby shower or something. It was a girl thing in the family. The guys weren't invited. So she obviously didn't want to, step on that weekend. So it was moved to the following weekend. And so I was like, all right, okay, fine, whatever. Now here's the thing. We live in California most of the time. My family lives in Winnipeg, in Canada. So for us, this is kind of a big deal because it's kind of like, well, we're going to have to fly in for something like this. And that's not the issue. But I kind of need to have it nailed down for timing or whatever, because when she'd asked me about it, I said, okay, that's fine. I can do that. But when are you thinking? And then I flew in the week, was it 4 days or Tuesday? Okay, so we came in on the Tuesday of that week. And that was when I ended up getting together with her, and then we did the sit down, whatever. So anyway. So I'm in Winnipeg. We have our little evening session. She actually had a lot to drink, but and you know what the funny thing is? I did have a memory. I can't tell you anything about her as an adult. I haven't really had a conversation. But when I was younger, I would have been about maybe 10 or 12 or so. That was when they were all getting married. So 3 of my cousins all got married 1 year after another. So I became her wine drinking buddy at one of the family weddings. And so we were laughing about that. And so then I said to her at one point, because now we're kind of loosened up and we're kind of, the wine. And I said to her, isn't this weird? We had a close relationship when I was like 10 or 12 and I was your drinking buddy. That was kind of the joke in the family. And I said, we've got this gap of about, 30 years where I have no memories of you. Like, no. And it's not that I don't like her or she doesn't like me. It's just not a close family. I have nothing against her. Whatever. But it's just a very distant family. And so she said, that's what you think about when there's a death, right? Is kind of go, why didn't I have a relationship with so-and-so? I should have had a relationship with so-and-so. So we have our little sit down. I kind of get it. And as I said, when I'm going to be writing the eulogy, I've got to percolate. I didn't know, I couldn't prepare with A&W and sourpuss with this guy because I don't know a goddamn thing about him. And so I let it kind of simmer, and I'm like, well, I'm not feeling it today, so I'll give it tomorrow. That's why we did it a few days before. So then 2 nights before. No, it was Friday night. It was the night before, because Thursday we would be taping radio stuff. So okay. So it was Friday evening when I basically kind of hammered all this out, and then like writing a script or whatever, I go through it, I look at it, I kind of scrap, I time it and kind of figure out how long it's going to be. She'd given me criteria about this person's going to say something, or there's going to be this, there's going to be a song here, and so you kind of map out the program and you figure out how it's going to go. As I'm doing this, Friday evening, as I'm like, almost got this funeral lock down. I'm going to kill it. No pun intended. This is going to be good. When I'm writing, I don't have, there might be music playing, but there's no, like, it's quiet. There's no TV, there's no whatever. Phones aren't near me. I've got my laptop, I'm sitting there, whether I'm comfy on the couch or I'm wherever. The inspiration just has to come to me. So I just I close the computer, right? I put it on the table. Done. Get up and go get a glass of water, whatever it was. I can see it on the kitchen counter is where we keep our phones. It's blinking the yellow light, which means text message. And I thought, well, it's Friday night. Like, who's, texting me? I look, it's my mom. Mrs. So-and-so died. Mrs. So-and-so was my grade 2 teacher in elementary school. My mom worked at that school for about 30 years before she retired. And so Mrs. So-and-so lived a few blocks away from my mom and, from my parents, and kept in touch, and we're still kind of friends outside. So they were both retired now at this point, but my mom would maybe walk over or whatever. So basically my grade 2, or as Americans would say second grade, Canadians would say grade 2, teacher died. And so I was kind of like, oh, well, that's too bad, but I'm kind of working on another funeral right now. So, and then wouldn't you know it, right, as luck would have it, my mom goes and says, she wanted you to speak at the funeral. And I thought, okay, sure. Now, here's the thing. This is another one of the situations where I know her from when I was, how old are you in grade 2? You're not more than 10 years old, right? You're younger. You're probably 6 or 7. I don't even know how old grade 2 is. My memories would be from as a 7-year-old. Okay, here's what I remember. she always complimented my printing, because this is, now I'm talking to people of a certain generation here. We had those, it was thin gray paper and it had the blue lines on it. Solid lines, top, bottom, dashed line in the middle, right? When you would practice your printing or your cursive, right, whatever it was. I remember that, and her giving me a giant red pencil that I used to love that pencil sharpener thing, right? Those little shavings or whatever coming out. So I remember that, and then at Christmas time, we would go into the gym and we would do Christmas carols. And so in the morning, she was the one who would put the little sheet on the projection screen, right? The projector, remember those like transparencies they were called? And it would have the words that would be on the wall. And so she would be standing at the front of the gym, and she would be conducting. She'd be conducting. I'm doing it right now with my hands. You can't see it. And so that's what I remember as a teacher from when I was like 6 or 7 years old. Great. That's my memory. Okay, how am I going to do... Now, this was different. This wasn't me emceeing or hosting it or, running it. This was just come up and do a eulogy, right? So we're talking a few minutes here, right? Where it's not like I'm going to be headlining and doing the full-on thing. So I thought, okay, this is a bit of a different... Okay, this is fine. I can do that. So I'll just tell my story as a kid, a 6, 7-year-old. So... Okay, fine. There we go. But I'm not writing that one tonight. Let's get, one funeral done and then whatever. Okay, great. So that's Friday night. Call it a night. I have a drink or a shot, whatever. My husband's ready to go. And then it's like, okay, good. Either lights out. I don't remember what we did. Anyway, so Friday night. Okay. So now, it would have been an early night because we had the funeral the next morning. So we didn't do anything. And not that we're very wild on a Friday night anyway. So wake up Saturday morning. Okay, great. Let's get dressed, do the thing. He always, his big hair and whatever. My getting ready that morning, obviously, is giving it another read through, making sure. And for me, even though nobody else is going to see it, I still cannot have a typo in my thing, because what'll happen is I'm going to see that. It's not going to throw me off entirely. It's going to piss me off in the moment. So I'm kind of like, I got to read it. No extra words, no whatever. And so I have that. It's good to go. Okay, great. Now I'm going to get dressed. For some reason, I put my shoes on. Do you have a pair of shoes that like that where they're not really outdoor shoes, but they're dressy? So you put them on as you're getting ready and walking through the house. So I have a pair of shoes like that. So I got my black dress pants on. I got my shoes on, and I'm walking through the house with these on. And so we go. Get to the funeral, at my cousin, kind of get ready. This is the lay of the land. Here's the thing. You're going to go up, talk, whatever. Okay, great. So I'm not really in touch with anybody that's coming in because I'm backstage, with the widow and the priest and whatever. So I haven't talked to any family members. I haven't seen anybody. And even during the thing, right? Because when you get to a funeral, you're chatting with everybody before it starts, right? So everybody is going to be talking, and I haven't had any interactions with them. I haven't seen anybody, whatever. So I only start talking to them after the service has ended. So my mom comes up to me and she says, Donna died. And I said, Donna. And she said, yes. Neighbor Donna. And I was like, oh my God. So in a matter of 2 weeks, maybe a little bit more, because like I said, cousin's husband died on the Monday, so I got that text, and then we flew in about a week later, and then we got together on that evening, and then we had the funeral the next weekend. So my cousin's husband died, my grade 2 teacher, and my parents' neighbor who lived across the street, and it's a husband and wife, but the wife died. They lived across the street from my parents when I and my brothers were living there. And I haven't lived with my parents for 20 years. My brothers even longer. We went to school with their kids. Their kids are a few years younger. No, I wasn't in the same grade. So yeah, they're at least 2 years younger than me, I think, is the oldest. And so that, now I have more memories of her because, growing up with her kids, and they would have birthday parties for the kids, and they would do a thing on New Year's, so we would go to their house and we'd be in their basement and they'd have the neighbors over. Do you remember back in the day, your neighbors would do that? They'd have different backyard stuff. It doesn't happen very much anymore. But they would always do something on New Year's. So I have a lot of memories of her. And yes, do you know where I'm going with this? Do you know what's happening now? Do you know what her funeral is? You know what's going to be? I'm going to give you just go ahead. I'll hear you. Say it. If you just said, "Hey, JB, you were asked to speak at the funeral, weren't you?" I was. I don't know anybody. So as I told you about that whole "we don't know who died" story, I don't know anybody in the history, save for a funeral director whose job it is to do something like that, or a priest. I don't know anybody who's had to prepare for 3 funeral presentations within about a week of each other. Well, a week and a couple days. And at some point, you almost kind of... And none of them are related, right? So it's not like it was 2 family members and a such and such, or 1 family member and 2 neighbors, or one... These are all totally unrelated. So you got a family member, or a family member's husband, a teacher, and then a neighbor. So they're all... I guess the neighbor and the teacher are kind of similar, perhaps. You maybe would have some overlap of guests at that one. But so you can't even go and say, "Hey, can you guys coordinate the dates differently? Because I've got these, different, So... And... it's funny because I said to our team in West Hollywood after, the coffee guys, and bless them too, because they are trying to be understanding when it's like, you had a death in the family, so sorry, whatever. And I'm like, I didn't know the fucking guy, right? So then when I'm in Winnipeg, they're, how are things going? They're actually more asking my husband, and so then I finally did reach out, and they said, "So how's it going?" And because I'm the person that I am with the sense of humor that I have, I ended up just saying, "I'm doing the fucking funeral circuit in Winnipeg." Just think of it, right? That would be like if 2 of your friends are getting married and at different weekends, or one's getting married on Saturday, one's getting married on Sunday, and you've got to do the best man toast for 2 weddings, so it wasn't a matter of, "Oh shit, I've got to do more writing." That's what I've done for a living my whole life. So, writing isn't the issue, but it's just kind of like, oh my God, now. And then my husband, again, bless him, he's going, well, he doesn't want to wear the same outfit just because he is a fashion model, and, you just don't repeat outfits. And not that there's going to be pictures of him at these things, but he's going to know. And I said, the likelihood, you're not going to have the same people at all 3 of them. Well, maybe my parents obviously, would be, but, otherwise, the family members aren't coming to the teacher, it's different groups. So, you can wear the same thing. Nobody's going to comment and go, "Oh my God, did you see that Charles was wearing No, nobody cares, but he's not going to repeat outfits. And so that's what I'm just laughing, going, as a guy, I'm just I'm going to wear the same fucking thing to each one. It's not my, I don't care. I'm not known as a fashion plate in my circles. So nobody's going to go and say, "Oh, didn't he just wear that at the other one?" Yeah. You know what though? How many people did you know have been speaking at 3 fucking funerals in the last few days? All for nothing. I didn't get paid for any of this shit. This cost me money to fly to Canada. So... Anyway, so I was doing the funeral circuit. Now, let's shift gears. We're going to take a break. We come back. Celebrity deaths, because that's also what I do for a living on the Scribble right after this.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
JB here, back on the Scribble, having a laugh about death. Isn't it just a funny thing? So, I said earlier, everybody has those moments of, where were you when such and such, which president was shot, or when 9/11 happened, or whatever, right? And so for me as an entertainment host, there are a couple of them, celebrity deaths, that stick out to me. And the reason that they do is because for our radio show, we would tape travel tourism programming in different destinations. So that would be a tourism board basically flies us to a destination, to a city, right? And, or a state or a province. I mean, we had the province of Nova Scotia. We did a bunch of different things around the province, but generally it was a city. And so they plan an itinerary of different local activities, excursions, restaurants, theater, whatever, just something to showcase their city. And they're paying for it. So it's kind of whatever you guys want to do, fine. I just have to pack my bags, get on a plane that they've paid for and booked, and then they pick me up at an airport. They drive me to a hotel that they've paid for. I just tell me who we're talking to, what we're doing, and I'll tape these segments, and that's what we do. And so they know that going into this, that I'm also the entertainment host, so that there is a chance that we might have to shift if there's some celebrity breaking news. That's just the nature of the business. So it got to the point where it happened several times in a row that I start then thinking, all right, well, there's going to be a celebrity death, you guys, at some point during this trip, because it's happened in the last 3 of them. So the ones that stick out in my mind. Now, very, very early on in my broadcasting career, Anna Nicole Smith died. So I was in Calgary. I was there for, this was even before my company was a company. I was just hosting the radio show from my parents' basement. But I was doing the entertainment hits as well. So I was a managing editor of a publishing company, and I was at a conference. This was literally my second day on the job. I flew to Calgary to represent this magazine that we did for the client. And so that evening, so I had just met all of these magazine staff, and now Bonnie Winters is one of our producers. Like she stayed back in Winnipeg. So I didn't know these people. They were kind of like, so you're like a radio guy, or like, what do you do? And they, salespeople, the owner of our company, who else was there? One other person came. I can't remember who it was. They're doing, like, in the evening drinks, whatever. And here I am, the new guy. This is when you'd think that, hey, I can be social with the owner and all these things. I have to go and say, like, oh, Anna Nicole, I can't actually go out with you guys. I got to kind of... So now you look like you're not a team player, right? Because you're not going out, you're not having drinks with them. This is a perfect opportunity to shoot the breeze, and then you come back to Winnipeg and you have a better relationship with them because you've bonded in a social setting like this. I didn't have that opportunity. So I've got to jump on and go, oh my God, Anna Nicole Smith died. And I haven't done very many of these celebrity deaths at that time. So I'm kind of like, how do I do this? Do I just like read TMZ? Like, what do I do? Now we've got producers and writers and whatever. So the information is just given to me. I don't have to do anything. So a couple of these trips, we were in destinations that didn't have the best reception for phones. And the one that sticks out in my mind was we were in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. We were doing... we were out in the rainforest. We were doing zip lining, and then it was like a water, what do you call this? Shoot. Crap, I can't think of the name. You guys tell me what it was. Do you remember, like, I jumped off that thing in the waterfall? Shit, I can't. Say it again, Bon? Rappelling, that's what it was. I was rappelling down a waterfall. Right. Right, so you're on this rope, and you kind of let go, and then you rappel down. So we just finished that, and this was one of those outdoor activity excursions where you go and do this, and it's like a 3 or 4 hour thing, right? So you did the zip lining, and then you go, and then you walk down you go for like a hike, and then you go and do this, then you get to this waterfall, then you do this. So it's a process, right? Now again, other people are doing this as an activity that they've booked, right? It's an excursion through a tour company, whatever it is. When you're there with the tourism board, they've planned this. So I'm still going and doing it, but at any time, like I said, I might get whisked away. Now here we are in the jungle, so again, cell phones aren't quite working. We do have a satellite phone, which is what we were using, and we had just finished the third activity, whatever it was. So there was horseback riding, zip lining, rappelling, and then I didn't do the fourth thing. So we just finished that. All of a sudden, one of my producers says, like, oh, we got, motions to me to come over. And I'm like, oh shit, did I do something wrong? Did I introduce something? Did I say something wrong? Do we have to retape it? Was there bad audio? Like what happened? And they said, Prince just died. And I said, singer Prince, or Prince, like, who are you talking about? Like Prince William? Like no, singer Prince. Okay. Well, that's a big celebrity death, right? So they are working on that in the background, getting the information. And so because we're with the tourism board, we always have a black SUV waiting. Whenever we're out doing something. So this was early afternoon. We kind of get okay, great. So we know what that means. We got to bail on this thing. At least we got most of the taping done for that. So we had taped interviews after each of the activities. So we did have the 3 segments or whatever that we needed, which was fine. We didn't do the 4th, not a big deal. So they rush to the SUV. We go. Now the great thing about not having Uber or renting a car, whatever, is that the tourism people know how to get us back to that hotel mighty fucking quick. So great, speeding, and they drive crazy in Mexico anyway, you know this. So, and we have the same driver every time. We did, I think, 5 years of shows there for different seasons and different things. So they're working on this, scripting or whatever in the car. Because the cell phone reception was not that great, I didn't do it from the car back then. Again, we're talking many years ago now. Cell phone reception is much better in a lot of places. So get back to the hotel. And the great thing was that this didn't really affect our taping schedule, because generally we would have we would do an afternoon activity, which would be about 1 or 2 o'clock, which that's what that was. And then we would have a break between maybe 4 and 6. And so that would be my downtime anyway. So we didn't have to shift anything. They had written the stuff in the car. They were getting it together on the way back. I get to the hotel, which I travel with a radio setup anyway, because we're there taping radio shows. And I jump in and go, okay, I did my station to station to station to station to station. I'm basically just saying the same thing to all of them. They'd gathered a bunch of the celebrity reactions from social media. So we've got a recap of his life again, and we're smooth sailing. So I didn't get a 2-hour break that day, but no big deal. And then we were there for the evening segments, which we would then do a dinner first, and then we would go and tape something at night. So that's how I remember. Where were you when Prince died? Most people probably don't even have an answer to that. I do, because I was out taping shows. And then the other one that sticks out in my head is Whitney Houston's daughter died. Bobby Christina, you remember that? This is about, I can't remember how long, but Bobby Christina died shortly after Whitney died, right? And so we were in Yukon, which again, we had taped maybe 4 or 5 different times. And the last night is kind of the goodbye. So the tourism board, the guy there, the tourism rep, Jim, he planned every trip that we did. So I'd known him for many years. So we would always have and it's always on the government dime. So, it's a nice dinner. Okay, great. We've spent another 3-4 days together. We'll do our final thing. And this was going to be, by the way, the first time that I ever ate a burger in my life. Seriously, I'd never had a burger before, ever. Oh, a steak. I'm sorry, it was a steak. Thank you, Bonnie. Oh, fact check. Hold on a second. Fact checking. It was a steak. I apologize. I still had never had a burger, though, at that point in my life. I only recently had a burger maybe 4 or 5 years ago. So anyway, thank you, Bonnie. Yeah, that's right. It was a steak. That's right, because they took pictures of me eating the steak. I remember that. Anyway, so it's kind of our goodbye. We're at this table. There's the tourism rep, and then there was somebody else from the government that was there. Then there was my group, my team. And again, cell phone reception back in the day, not that great out in rural northern Canada. All of a sudden, I get, I can see one of our producers across, looking down at the phone. We have kind of like a no phone rule when we're out with PR people or executives or whatever it is. But I know something's up when they're doing that. And so I get the nod, and I'm like, oh, is something what's happening? We have to what? And then she holds out the phone, and it's the news alert. And we've got the news wire on our phones, so it's not like it was just a matter of, we got a TMZ kind of. No. We're getting the news at the same time TMZ is, or other news outlets are. So that basically will give us about a 1-hour window before we're going live with something. So when you see that TMZ has posted that such and such died, generally they knew about that an hour or 2 ago. It's not like, we found out at 5:17 and now it's on the website at 5:18. It doesn't, you get about back in the day, you'd get maybe an hour or 2 before. So, okay, what do we have to do? We get our information about her. This is also very timely because Whitney had died not that long before. So, or no, was Whitney? Whitney was first, because that's where it was like, she also, okay, yeah. And so here we are at having this nice dinner at a restaurant. And I've got to now go outside to try to get good reception. I mean, I can't go and say, actually, bye everybody. It's like, well, I'll stand outside, and if I have to use the restaurant's landline and rack up their phone bill or call collect or whatever it is, well, I mean, it's the nature of the business. And at least, like I said, we had a 5-year relationship with them, so they knew what I did. It's not like I was being rude. It was nothing personal. But I was standing outside the restaurant. I'm standing outside the restaurant and reading off of again, back in the day, they would, on those notepads, like the waitress notepad, they would take your order on. I just grabbed a couple of those papers, and I'm writing notes on a waitress notepad to cover a celebrity death outside of a restaurant in northern Canada. So so those questions of where were you when? And then the other thing about celebrity deaths there's always something between Christmas and New Year's. And that happened, it seems to happen every year. that there's at least a major celebrity. And so this was Barbara Walters, Betty White. So during our radio shows, we would basically be shut down from December until the first week of January, and then we head into award show season. And so our team would always laugh because, again, even though we're off and we're not taping shows, December is going to be full of celebrity deaths. Just like when we get a week off or, 2 weeks off here and there, I said that to my husband, like, there's going to be at least 2 celebrity deaths. And when it happens on the first day of our break, I know there's going to be 5 of them in that 2-week period. That's just how it happens. It's just the way things go. And so that's the same. So yes, between Christmas and New Year's, there's always at least one big celebrity death. And I mean, if it is somebody like Barbara Walters or Betty White, you know them well enough, you know their history, right? So you know the shows that Betty White was on, right? You know the legacy of Barbara Walters. So there's a lot that you can just kind of go. But you don't know the celebrity reactions, right? So that's always the thing. So when so if it's going to be somebody like Barbara Walters, I'm going to wait for those responses from Oprah, from other talk show hosts, right? From other news people. So you're going to have your network news people are going to respond. You might get a president or other world leaders because obviously she interviewed everybody. Everybody knew her. So you're going to wait for your responses from whoever it is, right? Biden, Clinton, Obama, and then world leaders, right? You're going to have European or Middle Eastern leaders. They're all going to chime in, whether they respect. Well, I think they did respect her. They did, I think. So you'd start with your A-list celebrities. So if Oprah chimes in, if Obama does, or any of those other journalists, you'd have people from The View. Then, right? You're going to have those people. You're going to have. And that would be it, right? So you'd have world leaders, you'd have people from The View, you'd have A-listers, you'd have other news people. Yeah, those would be your go-tos. You're going to wait for those reactions to come in on social media, and then you're good to go. And then Betty White, of course. Now, I have a claim to fame with that because I was at her 90th birthday party here in Hollywood. So I also have, she got a big, it's not a plaque, it was like a commemorative, a massive thing for the wall signed by the mayor at the time. It had the gold seal and whatever on it. I have that from her house. So that's something that I was able to share with radio stations when I was telling that story. Like I was at her 90th birthday and I have this thing from her house in my house. Well, it's in our office now, but so, I'm going, not only am I talking about her legacy and then the reactions from former co-stars and just, again, presidents and whoever chimes in. Now, I've got my personal story about Betty White and being at her 90th, and I play clips from that show, and then now the story about this thing that I have from her in my house, because it was for the 90th birthday that I was at, so I have a little bit more of a compelling story then for something like that. So, those deaths I remember just because there was a little bit more to them. So that's going to wrap up our show about death. I hope you've enjoyed it. But I want to know from you. So my email address, live@jbonair.com, live@jbonair.com. Do you remember where you were for a major celebrity death? So let's say Betty White then. Betty White, it was New Year's Eve day, right? It was just before New Year's. Like, where were you? Did you end up watching? Did you do a Golden Girls marathon after that? Did you, what did you do? Did you blast the Golden Girls theme song? I know some people did that. Where were you when Betty White died? Or again, even those big, Whitney Houston or, whoever, where were you? Where were you when they died? Do you remember? Whitney Houston, I remember too, because that was right before the Grammys, right? I was covering the Grammys. And so I do remember that too. Yeah. Where were ya? Where were ya? Oh, and we covered the funeral too, because it was in New Jersey or something, wasn't it? We did. We covered. That's right. I was there. No, I'm thinking about Joan Rivers. Wait a second. Who did we? Oh my God, I'm confused now. We were. Oh, Bonnie's telling me we were at Joan Rivers and we were at Whitney Houston. Okay, never mind. I wasn't expecting to talk about that, but just now that I'm mentioning these names, it's making my brain go. That's like, yeah, that's right. We did. We were at Whitney's funeral too. So send me an email, live@jbonair.com, live@jbonair.com. I said 30 minutes of time wasting fun. We're now going on to the 1 hour mark pretty soon. So I will wrap it up. And thank you so much for listening. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. Hopefully you'll Be around for the next one. Bye-bye for now, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.